Yeah, good afternoon all viewers, and welcome to our second episode of Your Health is Your Health. In this episode here, we'll be having a discussion looking at the scourge of the NCDs in Dominica. We call them the non-communicable diseases. And we see that globally it is a major problem. So we're having two guests here this afternoon to look at the topic, and I would like them to introduce themselves. On my right is Miss Mignon Shillingford. Tell me something about yourself, Miss Shillingford. Mrs. Shillingford.
Hello, good day, viewers. I am Mrs. Mignon Roll Shillingford, nurse by profession. I have been a nurse for over 10 years, and no, I'm not going to tell you my age. Presently, I work at the Health Promotion Department as the Acting Coordinator of Health Promotion. And it's nice to be here to talk with you about NCDs and the impact on the nation.
Also on my left is the dynamic Carissa Shillingford. Miss Shillingford, I'd just like you to introduce yourself to our viewers and tell us something about yourself.
Okay, good afternoon to our listeners. Carissa Shillingford. I am presently employed at the Ministry of Health as the nutritionist. Before that, I was at the Princess Margaret Hospital as a dietitian, and prior to that too, I taught at St. Andrews High School and Northeast for about 5 or 6 years. Right?
So it's like these two professionals have been in the business for a while. Miss Mignon, her background is nursing, so she, from a nursing background, she has gone into what you call health promotion, looking at the preventive aspect of health, because she was basically doing curative medicine. But it's nice to see she have joined my field, because I am coming from an environmental background, a public health background, and I always believe that a lot of more emphasis has to be placed on prevention rather than cure. But this afternoon we're looking at the NCDs, as I told you, and globally we see it as a major pandemic, I would call it. There are some diseases that before that actually, where you had a pandemic outbreak, which were communicable diseases, like the plague in the 1500s. The plague actually devastated Europe. We have seen sometime early in the 20th century where you had an outbreak of influenza, which create a lot of problems to the people also. Millions of people died from influenza in the earlier part of the 20th century. But today, what we have seen right now in the world is an upsurge in non-communicable diseases. That's what we call the chronic diseases. Actually, 40% of the deaths in 40 million people rather died from NCDs annually, and what they're saying that is making up to about 70% of all the deaths globally. So that just gives you an indication as to how powerful these NCDs are in terms of killing people. 15 million people died from NCDs, and they are between the ages of 30 to 69. So that will tell you that is over 80% of them are what we call premature deaths. So people are dying earlier than they should. And this is out of the 40 million, 17.7 million died from cardiovascular diseases, with 8.8 from diabetes mellitus, and we have cancers is 8.8, while diabetes mellitus is causing 3.9 deaths and 1.6 million for the other areas like asthma. And you must tell it globally, what is driving that disease is rapid unplanned urbanization. You're looking at lifestyles, globalization of unhealthy lifestyles. Machine for have to go into more details on this one. Aging population, unhealthy diets, and the lack of physical activity. These are the major factors contributing to diseases. Now, I would like to give us a synopsis of the situation as it happened maybe in the region or locally in regards to the NCDs in Dominica.
Okay, so of course, just like the internationally in the region, NCDs, which are non-communicable diseases, are of course a major issue and a burden to us in the region. And that is why in 2007, there was what we call the Potter's Plain Declaration, and that is when all of the heads of government, the Caribbean countries, came together and decided to fight the NCD epidemic, and it was uniting to fight the epidemic of NCDs. You know, so during that day, everybody decided, coming from the Potter's Plain Declaration, that every year, the second Saturday in September will be Caribbean Wellness Day. So this started in 2008, so all the Caribbean countries in the regions, and this gave an opportunity to advocate, to speak about, to educate, you know, and empower people in relation to NCDs. From since some countries like Dominica, for instance, the first 2 years, we celebrated one day, you know, Caribbean Wellness Day, and then we quickly moved to a week because, of course, we identified their burden. We also identified the role that civil society, meaning like our NGOs, you know, Cancer Society, you know, different youth groups and everything, the role they play in championing and educating persons in terms of NCD. So we have quickly moved from a day to a week, and now we celebrate a whole month of activities in celebration of Caribbean. So we have a Caribbean Wellness Month, and last year marked the 10th year, you know, of anniversary of the Potter's Plain Declaration and Caribbean Wellness Day. Our activities were somewhat dampened because of Hurricane Maria, because you notice September was the Caribbean Wellness Month, and we had Maria on the 18th of September. So it's very much an issue in the entire region and in Dominica as well. I'm sure that a number of you have had some family or some friend who has been affected by the NCDs, and of course with Mr. Scotland's permission later we'll discuss what are the NCDs, you know, what different conditions fall under NCDs and what are the risk factors associated to these NCDs.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Teresa, what do you think of some of the common NCDs in Dominica?
Well, the most common NCDs in Dominica is like you will find the diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, and the chronic respiratory disease. And then for the cancers, we'll specifically look at like breast cancer and prostate cancer. Those are the most common among our members.
Mignon, what are really NCDs? You have to give a description of these diseases. How you really define them?
Okay, so as the name speaks for itself, it is a non-communicable diseases. Communicable means that they are not contagious. Okay, so you are unable to get them. They are not spread by viruses and microorganisms and germs or bacteria. Okay, so you cannot get NCDs from contact with persons or from droplets in the air. Okay, you can get, in fact, we actually look at 4 major risk factors when we speak of NCDs. We speak of unhealthy eating, and I think you alluded to that when you spoke of the global aspect. We speak of tobacco use. We speak of physical inactivity, you know, having a sedentary lifestyle. And we also speak of physical activity, tobacco smoke, alcohol use and abuse is the other one. You know, so all of these have strong links to NCDs. And there are other things in terms of age, you know, community and environment, and also hereditary factors. So I know sometimes person may say that we say that you cannot get an NCD from somebody, but hey, Mike, why do you ask if your grandparent or your mother had the condition? So we call that hereditary. That means it is transmitted in the gene. And also there are different ethnic groups, right, that are more at risk of certain NCDs. So for instance, blacks, which we are more prone and more at risk to conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure.
Yeah, well, this afternoon we really want to concentrate on 3 major NCDs in Dominica. Diabetes being one of them. And in my reading, I'm seeing that they're saying 4% of people have diabetes generally, and they do not know they have the disease because some people do not seek health care. But diabetes is a disease that has been causing a lot of serious burden to the people in Dominica. A lot of families have been suffering from, with their parents, or sometimes the children are exposed. I've read that you basically have 3 types of diabetes, and I think I wanted to go into more detail as what is diabetes, how it is spread, how it spread in the human body, and how it is controlled. So I don't know which one of you want to give it a tick.
Okay, so as Ms. Scotland rightly said, there are 3 different types of Scotty says that there are 3 different types of diabetes. Okay, so we have what we call type 1 diabetes, and type 1 diabetes is called insulin dependent diabetes. That means that your body produces no insulin or little insulin. Okay, so none or little, right? And we call that insulin dependent. Now, this type of diabetes is normally found in children, in juveniles, right? So we also call it juvenile diabetes. So for some reason, something happens in the body, right? Not through their fault, that causes insulin not to be produced, right? And we know insulin is responsible for the breakdown of glucose, right? Now, when we say you have diabetes or you're diagnosed with diabetes, that means there are elevated glucose levels in your blood, and normally we refer to that range between 65 to 110, and as a post-breakfast, 65 to 125, right, which is considered normal. Okay, so that is type 1, and most times as we say type 1, we find them in children. We also call it juvenile diabetes, and there are some theories as to what is the possibility of that cause, but we do not really know the known cause of this. Then we have type 2 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes, this is the diabetes that we are very much concerned about, because it speaks to, apart from the hereditary where you can get it from family, but this is a lifestyle disease. Okay, so this is based on your diet, your physical activity, your use of alcohol, your smoking or receiving secondhand smoke. And this diabetes is that you do produce insulin. However, for some reason, the insulin do not connect with the cells properly, go into the cell and work to reduce the glucose in the body. Okay, so that is what had happened. There is a resistance to this connection of the insulin into the cells, into the glucose, right? Now, I must say that this insulin, type 2 insulin, we call it, before we'd call it an older person's disease, right? Because you'd find persons in the later ages, you know, they have the as you get older, you know, people get disease. But now we are seeing a lot of young persons. You know, we also call it a modifiable disease. That means even if you may have a family history of it, but based on what you do, your lifestyles, your diet, your activity, your weight, you know, would either deter, prevent you from getting the disease, or it may delay its onset. But what we are seeing a number of young persons now presenting with this type 2 diabetes, which is a lifestyle disease. And this is very alarming to us, because we are seeing students who are in school who would have presented with, if they had to present with a diabetes, with type 1 or juvenile diabetes, presented with type 2. And what we are saying, most of these persons are overweight. Okay, so they are obese. Then we have the other 3rd type of diabetes, which is called gestational diabetes. And this diabetes happens in pregnancy. Anytime you hear of gestation, you talk about pregnancy. And for some reasons, you know, when we get pregnant, you know, there are different hormones, different interactions. And for some reason, there is a rise in the blood sugar, right, during pregnancy. Now, this diabetes, which is gestational diabetes, you can only get in pregnancy. A lot of time, it disappears after you have delivered the baby. Okay, so you go through your pregnancy, you have elevated blood sugars, you will be treated, and as soon as you deliver, it goes. But sometimes, for some reason, it returns or it stays.
If I go to Carissa, you ask you a question. In terms of the diabetes, what the role the pancreas plays in diabetes and the importance of insulin? So
as I mentioned earlier, insulin is the enzyme that is produced by the pancreas, which works on the glucose in the body and breaks it down. Okay, so as I said, in type 1 diabetes, the pancreas produces little or no insulin, and that's an insulin dependent. In type 2, it does produce the insulin, right? But if the insulin doesn't get to the cell, there's a resistance, and it prevents the insulin from getting to the cell to work on the blood sugar. Okay, so this is called a non-insulin dependent diabetes, and in that case, what we have to do, we have to give you medication to help that resistance, okay, to get that insulin to reach into the cells to work on the glucose.
Well, at you used to call it the idioms and the niddims. Those that require. Carissa, in terms of diabetes, can you list some of the symptoms of the disease? How does somebody feel when they have diabetes?
Okay, most times persons present with diabetes. You have a sudden weight loss, you have frequent urinating, there is excessive hunger, there is also a problem with the vision, so you start having blurry vision, excessive thirst also, and those are mostly the symptoms that you'll find, and of course you'll find an elevated level of blood sugar. Right?
My boy, you are cooking up a storm. If you are in for a good home-cooked meal, go down to My Boys on Pottersville Highway next to the Woodbridge Bay Port and enjoy the chill of the sea breeze, friendly service with a smile, and a wide selection of good Caribbean cuisine. My Boy, her specialty being her one-pot broth. Go down to My Boys Monday to Saturday and bask in the buffet. My Boy, located on Pottersville Highway.
Welcome back to Your Health is Your Wealth. We are recording in the lobby of Gary Hotel, located on the Dame Eugenia Charles Boulevard in downtown Roseau. And we are just discussing the scourge of NCDs in Dominica. We're now going to the topic cancers, because of late, I've been hearing a lot of people are dying from cancers. A lot of women are losing their breasts because of cancer. It's like a cancer epidemic in the country. Now, could you just tell us what is cancer?
Okay, so simply, cancer is rapidly growing cells. Okay, we are all born with cancer cells, and what causes us to get cancer is a stimulation of the cells. Okay, so we do not know what will stimulate Scotty's cancer cells or Mignon's cancer cell or Carissa's cancer cell, but we have theories, different agents, different foods, different things that we associate with cancer. So rapidly growing of cells, we call it cancer. So for instance, if we have, let's say, your ovaries, you can have cancer of the ovaries, and then we have cancer cells. We have cells just starting to multiply, uncontrollable, over and over and over and over, and they even move from one area. So ovary cells may end up in the stomach, in the abdomen, and start multiplying. So we just have that continuous growth. Okay, so it's a cancer. And as you rightly said, you said a number of persons have been presented with cancers in Dominica, and it's true. We have seen an increase in the number of persons being diagnosed with cancer, people dying from cancer, also metastasis of cancer cell. And when we speak of metastasis, we speak of spread. You know, the cancer cells moving from its origin where it has started to multiply and replicate and move into other parts, other organs of the body. I must say, in terms of statistics, the cancers that kill most men in Dominica is prostate cancer, and the cancer that kills most women in Dominica in terms of cancers is breast cancer and cervical cancer. Now, sometimes it hurts because, you know, there's screening, there's things we can do. When we speak of cancer, and we speak of management of cancer, and we speak of prognosis of cancer, early detection is key. And I would like to remind the public that, you know, there are simple things you can do. Our ladies, you can do your breast self-examination. If as a lady right now you do not know how to do that, it is easy. You can go to the primary health care, which is free. Any nurse, you can go to DPPA, that is Dominica Planned Parenthood Association, and you can learn to do your breast self-examination. Of course, women over the age of 40 years, you know, after 40, you want to start doing your mammograms, okay, you can organize that. Right, so no one should be dying of cancers. We do not want to find lumps that in second and third stage, that means they have proliferated so much that, your prognosis is not good. And in terms of cervical cancer, of course, we have the pap smears. You know, if you are having sexual intercourse, you are at risk of having cervical cancer. You know, so it's a simple test. You go to the nurse, you go to Planned Parenthood, you go to your doctors and you have your pap smear, and it advises you what to do, when you should check it again, how far, how long, and if we detect those things very early, there are a lot of treatment options that are available that you can still live a long, healthy life. Okay, our men, our prostate exams, the digital test. Also, there's the PSAs that you can do, which is a blood specimen. So we want to empower your men and women in terms of cancers. A lot of things, we know almost anything causes cancer, a lot of things. And we always say, when we think of cancer, we have to think of moderation. Moderation, everything in moderation. Right, Ms. Shillingford?
Yeah, so this is cancer, and you've seen every men, especially over the age 40, should do the prostate test. Yes. Right? We men know what age you recommend them to do cervical cancer test.
Okay. So in terms of women, remember it has to do a lot with your sexual activity, your beginning of menarche, and when you had your first sexual experience, encounter. So it differs. And what we are seeing is that a lot of younger women, younger persons are presenting now with cancer cells, right? Cervical cancer cell, because sexual intercourse started at a very early age, a lot earlier, and also we have a lot of increased sexual partners and sexual activity, so we have women having multiple partners. Sometimes the woman might not have multiple partners, but her partner has multiple partners. And we know one of the major causative organisms that cause cervical cancer is the HPV virus, human papillovirus. Okay, so this is normally transmitted on the man's penis, and even if your girlfriend or your wife may not be very promiscuous, but if the husband is or the boyfriend is, it can be transmitted on his penis, and then you have unprotected sex and it goes on to you. So since you are sexually active, and you are almost never sure where your partner is 100% of the times, and you are at risk. Okay, so you should have your pap smears done.
Yeah, well, before I leave, I also want to ask you about stomach cancers, because that's another area I see people start suffering from.
Yes.
What are some of the causes of this cancer?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with our diet as well. A lot of fat diet, a lot of smoked, smoked food. Remember, people would say that, some of our centenarians that live very long life, this is the type of food they grow up on. They had a lot of smoked meat, buen parfumé, if I'm saying that correctly, because I'm not really good in the pathway. Vin parfumé, so, this type of foods, and that didn't happen. But in terms of the different types of wood, we used to smoke the meat. These people were very knowledgeable on safe wood and wood that were not treated, and we know in terms of combustion, this carbon monoxide is produced with combustion. So every time we have combustion, and that we have that gaseous exchange, we have carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide is a very deadly and dangerous gas that affects the bonding of oxygen and all of that to the blood. It competes with oxygen in bonding, and it causes irritation of the gastrointestinal lining, all of which predisposes. So if you have continued erosion and damage to the lining of the abdomen, it predisposes you to cancer. All that very refined meats, meats like the burgers, and the processed meats, I wanted to say, sausages and all of that, all of this have greater risk in terms of getting stomach cancer. So you see our diet has a lot to do with our weight, and the type of foods we eat.
Yes, thank you, Mignon, for this, because your explanation, because a lot of people now are eating barbecue foods, and even the people barbecuing, I find some of them just in smoke. I mean, they're exposed to smoke sometimes 6 to 8 hours in a night, and they are inhaling that smoke. And I've been talking to some of these ladies around, I see barbecuing, in terms of the orientation of their grills. Put their grills in a position where the smoke will go away from them and not coming back into their breathing zone, because they can end up with lung cancers in the future.
Yeah, because Scotty, in terms of the smoke, and if we are talking about cancers, we have also seen an increased number of persons presented with lung cancer, and we are seeing that some of them were not smokers. You know, they were not smokers of tobacco. We know tobacco have a very high risk and likelihood of persons presented with lung cancer. But as you rightly say, other smokes, you know, also secondhand smoke. Well, some of them did live with persons who smoked, and they had got the bad end of the stick. You know, but with the smoke on a whole, yes, the carbon dioxide is produced, and also there's something called tar. Also, of course, you'd see that blackening, you know, everywhere barbecue is done, you'd see how the walls are darkened. But of course, we are inhaling that. So, of course, this tar is collecting on our areolas, you know, and our sacs, our air sacs. And that, too, of course, can predispose us to it.
Yes, Carissa, we have been waiting for thoughts as we go into the topic of cancer in terms of the risk factors that is contributing to these cancers around Dominica.
Okay, as Shillingford was saying, of course, your diet has one thing to do with it. If you make unhealthy choices, so you choose to eat fatty foods, always in fried foods, the barbecuing, as they were saying, because even persons have to pay attention to the part of the chicken or the fish when it is burnt. All of that too can contribute to cancer. You have persons that smoke, whether you are a smoker or a second-hand inhaler of smoke, whether from the barbecue or even is your girlfriend, boyfriend who smokes, put you at risk for lung cancer. Then you also have being physically inactive, and the mere fact that some persons are overweight, obese, and persons don't like to be called obese, but we have a simple thing as your BMI, and everybody should know that what their normal weight is supposed to be based on your height, what you should be, and to work towards that, because all of that puts you at risk for developing cancer once you are over that normal range. All right? And also the consumption of alcohol, and we have seen an increase since after Maria in the consumption of alcohol among our younger population and out there. You know, persons are just drinking, having a good time, but at the end of the day, all of that have an effect on your liver and on your body, causing you to develop cancer, stomach cancer, and liver cancer.
So the cancer, because you see, diet will be critical in the fight against cancer. Yes. And we have to seriously, in this country, look at how we're going to change that. The people ways of doing things, you know, old habits is not easy to kill. They had to die. And now we're looking at culture, the culture of eating, the type of food you eat have influence on your health, you know. So it's gotta be it's a hard challenge. I see it's a very tough challenge out there to get people to change their behavior. Yeah.
So yes, I just want to add to, in management of all of this and just eating healthier and living a healthier life, in homes where one person may have an NCD, we shouldn't just cook for that person. So for instance, if my father has diabetes, you know, my mother should not just cook a different meal for my father with low sugar and low carbs and cook a different meal first. Because look at this. Sugar on itself, cancer cells thrive on it. It becomes very acidic in the body, and cancer thrives on acid. Okay? So if from an early age that you reduce the sugar in the children, it will prevent them, reduce their risk of getting cancers. So it will help the father, it will help the mother, it will help the children. Okay, so you want more alkaline foods, you know, like your fruits and vegetables. And of course, in some conditions, we always say moderation. We cannot eat a peel of mango and say I'm eating fruits, and our dietitian Ms. Shillingford told me to eat fruits. Okay, because of course these two have sugars, right? They do have sugars, which is broken down to glucose and can raise your blood sugar. Yes, they are simpler forms of sugar, you know, unlike the other processed, like, you know, our biscuits and our cakes and all of that, which have more complex sugar. They are simple, but they still have sugar, so you still have to do it in moderation.
Well, I already mentioned mangoes, because I remember growing up as a boy, I used to go and collect bags of mangoes. We sit down and eat mangoes. I mean 20, 40 mangoes. So how do you consume mangoes? Was a lot of mangoes, you understand? And I just say that sometimes these things also have extra sugar. The important point you brought up there again, the family pot. When you're cooking, so your father has diabetes, and as my father had diabetes, that means his upstream generally will have, they are at risk to getting that disease. And as you say that, we should really be cooking food in line with him. The same meal he was eating, really, the children should be getting that same meal, so that you can really get into the habit of managing foods that can create problems to your health. Now, what are some of the other factors, risk factors? We're now in the prevention part now. Because she mentioned one issue of prevention, which basically was diet.
Yes.
So, what are some of the other factors that you can that can be outlined in the prevention of cancers, apart from the diet?
Apart from the diet, you can also look at weight management. So when you become physically active, I mean, you talk about in your days, persons would sit and eat a peel of mango and it would be okay. But now, when persons sit and they eat a peel of mango, they don't go out and play hide and seek. They don't go and play basketball on the court. They don't go out and play rounders. They sit at their home and they look at television, or they're on the cell phone with the WhatsApp, the Facebook, the Instagram. But what we encourage, one of the factors is you get physically active. There are gyms around. You don't even necessarily have to join a gym or to pay money every month. You could just get up and simply walk for 30 minutes. You could simply go out and take a swim in the sea and or in the riverside, and that will help to increase your physical activity. You'll burn the sugar from the mango, you will burn the fat from the fries or the chicken, and then it's also to the time that you choose to eat some of those food. Because if at the end of the day, at the night, you're going to sit and eat KFC, it doesn't make any sense, because all that's just going to stay there and stay in your body and form fats, which contribute to the formation of cancer cells.
Yes, we'll take a break for our sponsor's sake here as we finish our topic on cancer. And as you know, I hope you have gotten enough information on how you can manage this disease in Dominica, and taking your own personal responsibility for your diet and exercise.
Diabetes, basically, you can control and prevent diabetes through exercise, eating right, your right choice of food, diet. You eat more fruits and vegetables after you finish eating, instead of just sitting back and relaxing or watching television. You get up and take a walk. You do some form of sporting activity or something to keep the body active, so that the sugar doesn't just stay there in the system and be turned into fat. All right.
So what in terms of, if I have diabetes, what would you recommend that I eat in Dominica? Basically, seeing right now, we're just going from Maria, where there's a shortage of certain fruits and veg. Veg may be coming back in abundance, but the fruits maybe might be the ones that we lack in.
Well, while we might be experiencing some shortage of food because of Maria, we still have them in the markets, our vegetables and our fruits. Right now you can get some orange, you can get grapefruits, you can get apple, you can get grapes. But the thing is, as diabetic, you have to be careful with the amount of food that you eat. So if you're going to eat grapes, you don't just eat the entire carton of grapes or the entire bunch. You eat about 6 or 8 grapes, depending on the size. Then we have our guavas that are coming in back into season. We have our cherries that are now starting to bear, and all these are natural fruits that will have natural sugar, but because of the fiber that is in them, will prevent the absorption of the sugar, or make it take a longer period to be absorbed into your bloodstream. And of course, you prefer or use foods that are whole grains, like your cereal, your bread, your biscuits, foods that are low in fat, your dairy products that are low in fat, so your yogurt, your milk, preferable.
So just to continue and to support what our nutritionist spoke of, she spoke in terms of our nutritional or dietary management for diabetes, but there are other things. So one of the things is that you have to know your status. Okay, so you have to monitor the blood sugar, and that is how you would know whether the diet modification that you have just started or your treatment, which is medication, is working. One of the other key things that can cause your blood sugar to be uncontrolled is stress. Okay, so you need to also manage stress levels. Okay, stress on its own can cause elevation in almost everything, and NCDs is no different. So there's a combination of things. So just to repeat in terms of our diet, so we move now to a diabetic diet. And diabetic, remember we have this plate. If you look at a plate, a circular plate, at least half of the portion should be your vegetables, and the other half to be divided to have your meats, your proteins, your carb. And of course, if in terms of your vegetables, we are not forgetting the fruits as well, because we recommend you to have at least 5 servings of vegetables and fruits per day. Okay, so we look at stress management, we look at taking of your medication. So whether is your oral medication that is for the non-insulin dependent, or if it's your insulin medication. And I must say that sometimes persons who have been non-insulin dependent, meaning that they have been taking oral anti-hyperglycemic medication, right, ending up not producing no insulin at all, and the doctor may decide to put them on insulin. Okay, so they may not have started off where they were they may start off non-insulin dependent and move to insulin dependent. Okay, so you take your medication, you eat the correct food, the diabetic diet, you try to stay away from stress, have proper rest. In some areas, weight loss is necessary, and also physical activity. So it's a combination of things to properly manage diabetes.
But you mentioned the plate being half of it supposed to be vegetables. And when I am going around and checking people eating in restaurants, and generally vegetables is the smaller portion on the plate. So I don't know how we're going to change this mindset, because I see this is a very big challenge in terms of people that if they have been exposed from baby to that type of food and using a lot of carbs and a lot of salty and fatty foods, or are we going to challenge? Or what is the challenge you have outside there as a nutritionist in changing that behavior?
Well, in order to bring about change, most times you have to start at a lower level. And so with the use of the school nutrition policy, we have a hope of implementing a school feeding program that would be promoting strictly healthy eating at schools and outside of the school grounds. So the persons that would be selling to the school children as well should be selling only healthy snacks that are suitable for them, and not food that is filled with sugar or fat. So then using the school nutrition policy, or school feeding policy, we would target the school children, and by targeting them in the sense that when you teach a child something when they're small, that they practice it as they are growing up, and that will bring about the change that we need. So then they will go home and sit with their mother. Well, teachers say we're not supposed to take all that sugar, that maybe I'm not supposed to be drinking a box drink, maybe you could just give me some coconut water instead, or a bottle of water, and that would be okay.
My boy, you are cooking up a storm. If you are in for a good home-cooked meal, go down to My Boys on Pottersville Highway next to the Woodbridge Bay Port and enjoy the chill of the sea breeze, friendly service with a smile, and a wide selection of good Caribbean cuisine. My Boy, her specialty being her one-pot broth. Go down to My Boys Monday to Saturday and bask in the buffet. My Boy, located on Pottersville Highway.
Yes, welcome back to Your Health is Your Wealth. We're recording from the lobby of the Tower Hotel in downtown Roseau. We are located right here on the Junior Charles Boulevard. Hypertension. That's what is what they call high blood pressure in Dominica, also known as the silent killer. It has been creating havoc among the population. I would like to just tell you what is hypertension and what are some of the risk factors for developing hypertension.
Okay, so hypertension. So hypertension is one of the other diseases which fall under NCDs. It falls under the group of NCDs called the cardiovascular diseases. And when you're cardio, you always think of heart. You know, your heart and heart vascular muscles coming from the heart. And what happens in high blood pressure, there's a resistance, a strong resistance being that goes on the arteries of the blood vessel. Okay, so you have that resistance and it causes the blood pressure to be elevated. Now, a number of things can be the cause for someone to have elevated blood pressure, but a lot of it is because of plaque, you know, building up on the blood vessels of the lumen. Now, just like your drain, you know, if you throw down a lot of fat and grease and all of that into the drain, it's going to clog the drain, and sometimes you're going to have bursting or your sink going to block, right? And if you would pump it up, and so you'd see all that fat and grease. So a lot of times in terms of high blood pressure, you have a lot of fat and plaque building up on the blood vessels, which causing the resistance. That means the pressure, there's a resistance being exhibited, and it makes your pressure. Other things can cause your blood pressure to be high in terms of your diet, high salt content, in terms of stress level. And you notice stress keeps coming over and over and over again. Your job, the type of job you do, the higher you go in life, the ability of your stress level increases because your responsibility increases. Alcohol intake, again, brings up stress. Alcohol causes an inflammatory process. So from the time you drink the alcohol, we know we feel a heat. And that is why when somebody say they take a shot, you see their faces when they take the shot, right? So from the time the alcohol reaches the mouth, the buccal cavity, it has a fire. Right, you feel that heat, and some persons you feel the heat all the way as it goes down to your abdomen, right? So alcohol is coming in inflammation, okay, and it affects your liver and it affects your kidney. Now your liver is your detox center, right? So the liver is responsible for breaking down all the toxins that comes in our body. Now with the alcohol that causes inflammation, it destroys the function of the liver and it destroys the function of the kidney. Right? Now the kidney regulates blood pressure by getting rid of excessive salt. Okay? So when we take in our foods, the kidney is responsible for filtering the blood and getting rid of excessive salt and water. With persons with elevated blood pressure, sometimes the kidneys is affected, right? And it is unable to filter properly. And when they do get blood pressure, they get damaged. Okay, so high blood pressure is just that, elevated blood pressures as a result of a resistance being attributed on the blood vessel. And how is that being manifested? One, as we say, it's a silent killer. So a person might have high blood pressure, very high blood pressure, and have no symptom. We call it asymptomatic, meaning, and this is very dangerous because they are walking about normal, drinking, eating, and they are walking time bombs. But the persons who do present with symptoms from high blood pressure, the person may have chest pain, the person might have headache, frontal lobe or to the back of their head, like a tension. You know, they may have palpitations, their heart beating fast. You know, sometimes they feel very tired and restless. You know, they're not too sure what is happening, but they don't feel themselves, they feel bad. You know, and sometimes if it has already started affecting their heart or affecting their kidneys, they may have swollen legs. More predominantly the right swelling, so we call it edema. Okay, so these are some of the things, but a lot of times people get to know that they have high blood pressure accidentally by just monitoring and checking, knowing they may have a family history, knowing what their lifestyles are like, and they go and check it. Or one time they feel bad. Some people accidentally know when they fall down, you know. So a person may just collapse, you know, and taken to the hospital, and when you do their blood pressure, it is sky high.
Yeah, but it's amazing that you say you have people walking around with high elevated blood pressure and they feel it normal. You don't really know like none of the signs you outlined there. So that's why it is good to check yourself, to do at least an annual checkup to your doctor Men especially, high blood pressure, men at risk. A man of African descent. I mean, black people are at risk to high blood pressure. So we have to point out in our population here the importance of doing early checkups. Now, correct, sir, we have some controllable factors. Because you see, as you know, you have the factors that cause the disease, but you also have factors that can be controlled for high blood pressures. Can you explain some of this to our viewers here?
Yes, like we have some that, you know, you cannot, there's nothing you can do about it. Being black, you cannot change. Your age, you cannot change. But simply by changing your diet, instead of eating food, when the food is cooked, you decide that you must have a salt shake on the table because you find that the food do not have enough salt. And a lot of persons believe that the food do not have enough salt. But we'll be surprised to know that the majority of the foods already have salt in them, that you don't necessarily need to add the salt itself or the seasonal or the cube that we add that will give it whatever flavor that we claim that we are looking for in the food. So by reducing your consumption of salt, by becoming more physically active, as I was saying earlier on, you go out, you do something, you play, instead of just sitting there and do nothing or just being on a cell phone. You know, I mean, you get out and you do something. And then if you're overweight, once you're overweight, that puts you at a greater risk of having high blood pressure, getting stroke, having a heart disease or some heart condition later on in life. So if you just work to find out your ideal weight and you make a goal and work towards that, that are things that you can control, that you can change. And of course, the consumption of alcohol, and I mean alcohol is relatively cheap in Dominica. Most shops sell it. It's like $1 a shot, $2 a shot, and when they're ready they do the promotion to make sure that you come around to buy the beers and so. And then remember that you have to, even if you're drinking, whatever you do it in moderation, because it's in the excess that causes the most damage. Right?
Yeah, I really like to expand on the alcohol. Because alcohol itself, it's like I see it is being consumed. I mean, we're looking at the age groups, but there's supposed to be a limit on alcohol sales and ages of people that are purchasing alcohol. And do we have some legislation in Dominica to deal with alcohol consumption?
Okay, so yes, we have legislation as it relates to, while alcohol is a legal drug, so you know drugs fall under two different parts, illegal and legal. Okay, so alcohol is a legal drug. However, there are laws in terms of the age of selling, the age at which you sell alcohol, which is 16. We also have laws in terms of selling to a person who is visible drunk. So if the person come in and you can see that they are drunk, there's a law against selling to them. And a lot of that, I don't see that being enforced very much. You know, this is an area that I think that we really need to strengthen, because you can, sometimes you're out, you know, and you're seeing that the person's going to the bar, going to the shops, are visible, more than visible, they can hardly walk, you know. And they are still being sold more alcoholic beverages, you know. So we have the age of consent, not consent, but rather the age that someone can go to buy. I have seen parents sending their children to get beers for them, to buy beers, and it's being sold, you know. So yes, but we, the drug prevention unit is in the process of developing some policies to strengthen the problem and reduce the use and abuse of alcohol in Dominica, which is very good, because of course it is very visible. Anybody who says that they do not see it, I do not know. Yeah, but you know, you go out and you see how people, you know, just use alcohol, and we know in terms of normal, what is normal for an individual to drink per day. For a woman, we know is 8 ounces. Right, of alcohol, you know, the small 8-ounce glass or 1 beer. For men, we know it's 2 drinks, okay, per day. Now, we have been going around and advocating in terms of reduction of alcohol, you know, use and abuse, you know, and some young persons would say, well, nurse, ma'am, you know, I don't drink during the week. Okay, so if you tell me I can't drink 2 drinks a day, I don't drink during the week, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can drink my amount for the week. No, that is very different, you know, because if you go out and you drink 5 drinks. Remember what I alluded to earlier, that all of us have cancer cells, right? And if it might just be that one stimulant, and that stimulant may be the alcohol that you need to actually cause you to get that cancer. Okay, so it is not wise. It's better that you drink the 1 drink or the 2 drink a day than to go on the weekend and drink 5 drinks. And I've listened to young people saying, oh, this weekend my liver dead. You know, what do you mean like that? You know, and I just feel that they do not understand, you know, the burden. And yes, the implication and the burden on the Ministry of Health. We are seeing a number of young persons presenting with renal failure. You understand? And this renal failure, in fact, the dialysis unit, this is the area where a lot of cost, a lot of money has to be spent for treatment, for the machines, for the equipment to dialyze patients. You know, so we have people losing their kidneys, and a lot of young men, you know, a lot of young men. You know, so please, when you make those statements saying that you're gonna kill liver, you cannot. Yes, you will literally kill your liver. Okay, do not go about drinking 5 drinks, 6 drinks, 7 drinks. And if someone tell you they had 3 drinks on the weekend, just know it's 6. You know, we always double it. Okay, so please, so when we talk about hypertension, we talk about high blood pressure, we talk about the silent killer, we talk about the damage. It damages your eyes, it damages your heart, it damages the kidneys, because as we say, there's a pressure being exhibited on the kidneys. And you can imagine, just think of a drain. I always refer to your kidneys and blood vessels like a drain. You know, you have that pressure, that force. If it continues to go at that force, what's going to happen is going to damage, because the pipes start leaking or it start bursting, right? So it's going to affect your kidney and cause kidney damage, right? So most of our persons who present to the hospital with renal failure, and renal failure is when the kidneys are no longer able to clean out the body, clean the blood, you know, to filter it and take out all what it is not needed, is associated, is secondary to diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes, and high blood pressure. Okay?
So you see, that's viewers, as you can understand from Mignon here, the kind of damage alcohol can cause to you. And you take it for a joke, because you start, especially when you start at an early age. By the time you reach 40, that's where you are. You're in the hospital on the dialysis, and it's a costly operation. Sometimes you don't have the money, insurance to cover it. Government now has to get money to assist. But all these things are preventable if you take the right measure. Like you clean your liver. You don't have to clean your liver. You know what's your liver? Your liver is the cleanhouse of your body. And if your liver is not functional, you know, you're a dead man walking. So that's the effect of this sort of drugs on your body. And the last one, in terms of this, another risk factor which you mentioned, which is smoking, second-hand smoking, because there's a policy on smoking. Where has it gone?
Okay, so the policy on smoking has not gone. In 2005, Dominica ratified the Framework Convention of Tobacco Control. And this is a convention, a framework that a lot of our countries in the region understanding the risk associated with smoking and second-hand smoke on the population in countries and NCDs. Where is Dominica at this present time? Cabinet last year in 2016 had agreed for drafting of the bill, you know, for policies to be done in terms of the Tobacco Act. Of course, because of the passage of Maria last year, that was affected a bit. You know, Maria affected a number of areas, but we have not forgotten, and as soon as possible that we will be started working on the drafting instructions with the support from PAHO for that bill to be done. You know, and this bill would include things like no smoking in public places, so that means that no one will be able to go out in the public and smoke. So in terms of you getting second hand, there will be a ban on all advertisement of tobacco and tobacco products. In terms of sales of tobacco and marketing, you will not be able to see tobacco up on shelves and so in business places. And also in terms of labeling, So now when you look at it, take up a tobacco package, any tobacco package, it will have more than 50% which demonstrates the negative effect or the ill effects of tobacco in pictorial and written form.
On the label.
On the labels. Okay, so you will see the harm associated. One thing I just wanted to go back on, Mr. Scotland, while we spoke of high blood pressure, we cannot forget this, because in terms of the burden, you know, the impact that high blood pressure, if it is having in the country, another area apart from renal failure is the strokes. You know, we have been having a lot of young persons presenting with stroke, you know, and we know a stroke is when we have either a blood clot in the brain or we have a rupture of the blood vessel in the brain. So it can be as a result of a clot, or we call it a hemorrhage, bleeding, a rupture. Okay, and we know what happens with stroke. You know, a lot of time the person loses the ability to function in total, you know, so they may have paralysis of one side of their body, the lower part of their body, and paralysis means they are unable to use it. So we have young people who are still within the reproductive ages, who are still able to help the workforce, now have a disability, you know, and the same thing with diabetes as well. A lot of these conditions are so linked. We call diabetes and high blood pressure brother and sister. Sometimes we call them twin. So if you do not do what is right in one, eventually you will get the other. And we have been having a number of amputations as well as it relates to diabetes, because sugar affects your circulation and all of that. Okay?
Yeah, that was very good in terms of the burden, strokes, kidney problem, you have leg pains, you have eye damage also. All that is due to hypertension, high blood pressure. So it creates a significant pain and sorrow for people. And they have to understand they have to take certain preventive measures. Carissa will be closing on the preventive measures for hypertension. And again, I want you to enforce on what can be done by our public, our listeners, in managing or preventing hypertension.
Okay, in managing and controlling or even in prevention of high blood pressure, first thing you look at is your diet. It's whatever you eat, and that will affect your body. And if you just follow simple guidance, a low-fat diet, the avoidance of adding salt to your diet, the consumption of fruits and vegetables, whether you grow your own vegetables so that you don't have to be facing the high price of vegetables right now, that you can have your own backyard gardening, that you can simply get up and go for a walk. Dominica is beautiful, you can explore it, and do some kind of physical activity, at least for just 30 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but something different every day can help to prevent you from getting high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer. And just simply, if you go out and you want to have a good time, it's okay to drink a glass of water and not necessarily consume alcohol. And if you're going to consume alcohol, do that in moderation. And just be in control of your health, because it is you need to be healthy in order to make any contribution to your country.
Well, closing remarks, Mignon, because Carissa, I think you wrap up some of the factors. But in general, you know, the NCD is a scourge right in Dominica. It's an epidemic stage. Globally, it has been pandemic stage. So what are your closing thoughts here this afternoon?
Okay, so I just want to close by saying, yes, the NCD epidemic is an issue, according to our own Dr. Clarissa Etienne, who was here some time ago. They say it's a tsunami. We spoke on 4 areas which needs to be addressed to help prevent the surge of these NCDs. We spoke of healthy eating or eating diet patterns. We spoke of not being physically inactive, so getting on board, doing something, being active to reduce obesity. I do want to say too that we spend some time on obesity because we know there's a real correlation between NCDs and obesity. But we also see too a number of persons who are not obese presenting with cardiovascular diseases like high blood pressures and cancers and so. So I don't want you to say, oh, I have a high metabolic rate, I don't look fat and whatever, I'm not going to get an NCD. Okay? Remember, there are other risk factors apart from obesity. Okay? So we have physical inactivity, we have the misuse and use of tobacco, you know, and we also have in terms of alcohol. Okay, so I just want you to remember that there are a number of things what you can do for one. Most likely you have to do it for all, and to prevent the onset of a number of other conditions. The Ministry of Health is always aimed and focused at looking at new strategies and new ways, you know, to help curb this disease by policy intervention and program planning and surveillance. At present, the Health Promotion Department will be undertaking, will be doing one particular strategy where we'll be training persons to manage their disease, their chronic disease, and this is really chronic disease self-management program. So this is one of our recent programs where we'll be going to different communities and train persons to self-manage their disease. So Mr. Scotland, thank you for having us on Health is Wealth, right? And we will be glad to come in again, and anyone willing to have any information and any program they would like to initiate in their business place, in their school, in their work, in their church, the Health Promotion Department can be contacted at 266-3469.
Yes, thank you, Mignon. In closing, I would like to say that it's been a very fruitful discussion. We hope the viewers have got quite a bit of information on how they can manage non-communicable diseases among themselves and their family, their relatives. We have to have, as Mr. Sheen was saying, we have to have a considered attack on these 4 risk factors. And if we can do that, we could see a better Dominica. In closing, I would also like to thank the management of the Galway Hotel for providing us with their beautiful lobby to have this recording, and we hope in the future that we can work together with them as a partner in this operation. Anthony Scotland saying bye for now.